Hey guys, I am back as original book nerd, and tonight I have a very special author in attendance, and that is Jade Presley. And if you haven't heard, we are going to discuss her latest book, The Never List, which was a Entangled published book through their Red Tower imprint. And she was also represented fabulously by K Publicity. So, Jade, how are you feeling tonight as you join me on this
Thank you so much for having me. I'm feeling great. I'm super excited. We're so close to the release date, and I've been just having the best time talking to readers ahead of this release.
So I also was one of the lucky influencers that got the pretty art box of the Never List by Jade, which we will open as Jade kind of gives a quick introduction about her and what she's excited to chat about tonight about this book, which, if you haven't heard, is a Why Choose, and it's a royal romantasy romance.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk about it. I love this book so much, and it's been such a long time in the making. I've been working on it for 2 years, so the fact that it's almost out and the early copies are in readers' hands is just absolutely thrilling to me, and that the characters are finally coming to life in the reader's eyes. So that's when it becomes real for me, and so I'm so pumped to talk about that.
So I did open my box. I was too impatient to wait. But it came with this, and it says, they seduce her, or they'll seduce her to save their kingdom. She'll betray them to protect her secret. And if that isn't one of the best teasers I've ever read, and then of course it's why choose. So the box says, why choose one when you can have them all? And yes, Riley, yes, I agree 100%. Why choose one if you can have them all? Although there is one I would choose if I had to choose. And Jade knows who that one is. It's with a little reader card that's a note from Jade. But the shiny part of this box is the art, and I can't wait to highlight my arc that came and have an excuse to read this book again.
Oh, thank you.
But so my first question about this book is, what was the inspiration behind the Never List and, a why choose kind of romantasy style romance?
That's such a fun question. So I was talking with my publisher, my editor. We were coming up on the next project and we were kind of talking about what we wanted. And I have been writing Why Choose for just a little bit now. And we wanted a steamy romantasy that would appeal to all genre readers of romantasy, even those who haven't read Why Choose before. And I couldn't get this idea out of my head of this massive royal event where these four princes, they need a mate, and the one woman who doesn't want to be there, of course, is going to get chosen. And I love that idea. I love mistaken identity. I love surprises like that. So I couldn't get that out of my head. So once I pitched that to my editor, she loved it and she was like, go for it. And then I just listened to Riley. She was my loudest character, which I love it when they're loud because it just helps me flow through the story. And so I listened to her and we just took off. It was
So, for those new to Red Tower or Jade or even Romantasy, Riley's the heroine in this book, and there's four princes, and it's Jax, Pierce, Axel, and there's a
Cal.
Cal. I was
And
trying to
Cal,
think
yeah.
of Cal. But Axel and Cal are definitely the softies of the bunch. And of course, the two harder characters are Pierce and Jax. Jax being my favorite and
Yeah.
his unhinged shadow, nightmare, power, glory. But were these names always the names you were going to have for the characters, or did they kind of come to you after you had this story in your head?
So I definitely have the characters sketched out before I really dig into the story. And that's one of my first processes of writing is getting the characters kind of sketched out. So I'm like, I know what they smell like, what their voice sounds like. I know what their attitude is, like what they would do in certain situations before I even start writing, because it just helps me fall into the plot way more. Of course, they surprise me along the way. That is something that does happen quite often, but that is one of my first parts of my process is to start with sketching those characters out. So yes, I always knew their names, and they definitely walked onto the page with their own personalities, and they were all different. So it's super fun balancing all of that for sure.
For this book, how did you kind of balance the world building and the plot? Because it's a book that we need to have the world building for events that happen in it. But it is plot heavy because, it's a royal fated mate why choose romance?
Yeah, that's something that was incredibly important to me because I know, some why choose books are all steam, no plot, which is totally great too. It just depends on what you're in the mood for. But for this one, I definitely wanted a rich romantasy. I wanted something you could really sink your teeth into while also getting that heavy dose of steam. So it was definitely a balance. It definitely took me longer to write it because of that being plot heavy. And it did take me, like, I spent weeks working on the plot before I even started writing it to make sure that most of it was laid out before me so I could stay on track. Of course, a few things changed here or there, but it was incredibly important because I wanted a regular romantasy reader who, loves like Quicksilver and Fourth Wing to be able to pick this up and be like surprised that they like Why Choose if it was new to them. And that's so I knew I had to bring it with the world building. And luckily Lumithus was very, very vivid in my mind. And I did a lot of research on the royals of history and things like that to help me really ground it. But yeah, it was very important.
So, on the why choose genre, what made you think when you had this idea? I know you talked about why you made it why choose, but not one prince, but four. And how were you going to meld four really strong egos and attitudes and magics together to have them work as such a strong unit? Because the four of them are a unit in this book.
Definitely. And I love that about them. They do have this wonderful bond between all of them, even though they're so vastly different. So that was something that was really fun while writing. But for me, Riley, like I said, she came to me very, very like anti-royal, anti-wealth, anti-rich, anti-powerful. And so it kind of evolved into, okay, they all have to be princes. Like they had to be in order to have this good push pull and this, peeling back of the layers of like, do I hate them? Do I not? Do they stand for this? Do they not? And it created this wonderful push pull as opposed to having like one prince and maybe a guard and maybe a chef and all these other things we could have played with. It just they in my mind when Riley was talking to me, they just came out as princes, and so that's the way we went. And I'm so glad we did because I just love them all.
So don't hate me for this next question, but I'm sure the readers and me in particularly want to know, when you were writing the Never List, did you have any favorite moments or scenes or even like side characters that came to you and you're just like, this person's gonna just add so much to this book, or like this scene, this area of the book is just vital for how I wanted this story to go?
Oh, that's such a hard question. For a scene, gosh, any scene with Jax and Riley, because he avoided her so much. Like after that first, he was really easy that first scene for me with them when they first meet, and then after that, he was just like, I am not playing this game. And so any scene with them. So I think one of my favorite scenes with those two in particular is when she's kind of crossing lines a little bit and in a way that nobody ever has with him because he's so standoffish, and she kind of takes one of his knives and kind of messes with it in front of him. That's one of my favorite scenes ever to have written. And just to have all the reactions of the other guys seeing what she's doing and how she's interacting with him in such a way that they're like, oh, that's my girl right there. I love seeing it through their eyes because it kind of solidified her in this group that has been very tight knit for a very long time. And they're not very trustworthy either. So that was kind of a cool moment. And then for side characters, Mirren, I love her so much. She came in and I did not know, I did not plan her when I was in my plotting stages. She just busted in the door as herself, this like very stern, older motherly figure, and I loved her. And so she ended up being in the book way more than I even knew she would. So yeah, that was surprising.
Marin was actually one of my favorite characters.
I love
And
that.
I loved how you're right. She very much is the maternal figure for the four princes. But I would argue that she also takes on a maternal kind of role, guardianship with Riley at times. Once they get past that, I hate you, why are you here phase, because they both have a very strong get off my lawn vibe when they meet each other.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
That knife scene's also one of my favorites. This is I had a lot of people comment on the knife scene because that was one of the ones I brought up when I asked early readers to comment on a scene. And the consensus is that we all love how you decided not to have it from Riley or Jax's point of view, because we got to see how it was playing out like seeing their reactions face and like the tension that was between them. Because Riley and Jax they're my favorite. Jax is, Jade knows I'm like obsessed with Jax. He can do no wrong in my eyes. I claim him. But when you were writing this book, was anything like vastly changed from draft one to kind of the arc or physical final proof that are starting to come out?
Definitely. And there always is a lot of changes that happen because I'm so incredibly lucky to have just an amazing team of editors who bring so much to the creative process. Like, so I had this first draft written out and I was in love with it. And most of it, I'd say 90% of it is still in there. It's still original. But there was some input and we did change the ending a little bit. And I loved it. Like, I would have never thought to go this route without my amazing editors saying, hey, but what if this? And what if we saved this for the second book and really like drew it out and like it fit so much better, this plot line to go into book two. And so it was awesome to have that experience. And we just worked so well together. And the whole team at Red Tower is just amazing. And I feel really lucky to just like, they just get me. Like, somebody just sees you and they know how to like help you bring out the best of yourself. Like, it's amazing. And so I'd say there was a little bit of a tweak to the ending that changed, which I won't give away, but yeah.
I do have some questions about the ending. So, for you guys watching, before we hit any spoilers, I will announce. So, if you don't want to listen to spoilers, you can pause or come back later. I do have questions that could be containing spoilers. So, you heard it here. They are coming, not yet. In the meantime, though, a fun question for you, and I'm also really curious, but if you could choose one of the courts, and there's four, which court would you want to be a part of?
Oh my gosh, this would be the hardest. Oh my gosh, this is the hardest question ever because I don't play favorites with my princes for sure. Because I love them all for so many different reasons, and it's so hard because it's almost like what mood I would be in of where I want to go. But if I had to choose one to live in forever, it would probably be the Emerald Wood with Pierce. Just I love like the vibe there and getting to explore. It's more of a, tea shop and library and intellectual, like go read for days, nobody's gonna judge you type of vibe. Go get your afternoon tea, get your tons of snacks, your tea, and read your book all day, and nobody's gonna bother you kind of vibe. And so I would probably go there. But I love them all for so many different reasons.
I was gonna answer, but because I'm tied, I'm a beach person, so I really love that coastal town you have.
But yeah.
But I also really love the Emerald Forest because I do love tea and I love to read. So it's probably gonna be a mood thing for me too.
Yeah, for sure.
I would also say if I'm feeling fiery, I might want to join Jax in his Midnight Castle and the black, like the onyx.
Yeah, it's the Obsidian City. But yeah, that's where you're gonna go if like you wanna go dancing all night or you wanna go see live music or you wanna gamble. Like that's your like adventurous side. And then Cal City, the Ruby Air, is like when you wanna go get a really like a 5-course meal and a beautiful play. There's so many different aspects of their cities that I just love and it really is a vibe. Like what are you vibing with? They have it for you there. So
On the topics of what you would choose, you said you can't pick a prince, but can you pick a magical power? Is there a magical power that one of the five main characters have, or any character in the book that if you could choose a magical power, that's the one that you would want?
Oh yeah, I love this one. I would absolutely do Pierce's power, his ability to read minds, manipulate realities. Like I think that's such a cool and complex power, and I think it would be like a super big responsibility, and there's a lot of learning to it. But I would love to be able to just like change somebody's reality or like open their mind to something else, and I think it's just uber powerful. So that would be the one I would go towards.
That's a good one. And on the topics of Pierce, when Riley goes to Pierce's court in the Emerald Forest, I would argue to say that Pierce might have been the one she was most intimidated by because it was not Jax and it was not the other two. Was that always how you saw those two playing out? Because both of them are very strong willed, set in their ways characters, and we also throw in a twist. I believe it's this one with Pierce's dad who ambushes her before she leaves this court.
Yeah, actually no. So I didn't know how those two were going to interact. Like Pierce was one of my hardest ones because Jackson, Riley, I knew immediately. I knew immediately they were going to have that kind of push pull, super angsty vibe. And then Axel, he came onto the page super playful and fun and adventurous. So I kind of knew like that would match her energy super well and that they were always going to have fun together. And then for Cal, it was very easy. It was like he is her comfort. He is going to make sure her needs are met no matter what, which I love about Cal. But for Pierce, no, it wasn't until they first got on the page together and I started to see how Pierce's character really was, he's not very trustworthy, and of course he would be because he can read people's minds, so he knows what's going on behind the curtain a lot of the time. And so for him, she was very terrified of him because he could, if he wanted to, he could easily just betray all her secrets that she is keeping. And so he was the one that posed the greatest threat to her, so I think she was super worried about him. And then plus him having those trust issues and making her earn it, it was a battle for them, but I just loved it in the end for sure.
On the topic of his powers, this is an interesting question, and it came from one of the Entangled Insider readers. They wanted to know the topic of trust and mutual respect is a big underlying theme between the five of them. Riley with the secret she is keeping and the fear that she has about her life, but also on the prince's end because they've been through this, rigmarole and the mate trials before, and it has never ended well. How did you balance, them keeping their own secrets, but also, harboring and growing that trust between them? And doing it enough so Riley's comfortable to let them know her secret by the end of book one.
That was really it was a hard balance, but it was very important to me because I think with Why Choose and these relationships, having a group relationship, there has to be a level of trust, but it's human nature to have secrets. It's human nature to, in any relationship, that you're not going to expose your most vulnerable pieces of yourself right away. And especially in Riley's case, because her life is literally on the line for it. And of course, the princes were going to have those too. So I thought that was a very relatable thing, keeping secrets, and but also like you can show who you are at your core without telling, your entire history and all of the things that you've done in your past, or certain pieces that make you who you are. So yeah, that was it was a tough line to walk for sure. And it definitely, Riley had her doubts, off and on. She's like, there's no way this could be real. I'm keeping things too, So it was I felt it was very human, even though it's a romantasy, it came very natural that way.
So that leads me to ask, with Riley, was there any part of her or tidbit that you threw in that you can kind of envision yourself in within her character in this story?
Yeah, I think for sure there's always a little bit of me in these characters. It's very minuscule because she's way cooler than I'll ever be, which is always fun to write. But like her feminine rage, her rage at like the social classes being disrupted for just completely ridiculous reasons, that I very much felt that as a woman, and just the way that sometimes, like especially with the kings, like consent just isn't a thing. That anger that she has for that and the injustices in that and this whole system really. I felt that. Like I'm very much, women power, and that's why I wanted her to be such an empowering, sex forward character because I get very tired of. I've been a romance author for a while, so I get very tired of hearing men talk about how frivolous romance is or how this woman's Sabrina Carper is being too sexual in her shows or whatever it is. Like I'm so over that. So yeah, that translated to Riley. That little piece of me, that feminine rage, definitely came out on the page for her.
Well, this is a good one. So this is another reader submitted question. I do have a lot of readers wanting to know if you have a favorite Prince of Chaos or if it differs from their city, like if you like their city more than a certain prince. But I'm going to twist up their question and ask if you could have a prince and transplant him into one of the other three courts outside of his own and have him now be the prince of that court, which prince do you think could do it and how would they do it?
That is really hard because their cities are so unique to them and their skill set and their talents and their power. Pierce could probably transplant to any of the courts because he is just incredibly intelligent and adaptive. Like that's his whole vibe. His survival instinct is to be adaptable to every situation. And so I feel like Pierce could really, he could go into any court and handle it, but it would still be different. Like they just wouldn't do it the same. Like, you know, Axel would just be making a mess everywhere. And a fun mess, but a mess. So yeah, I think it would be Pierce.
Pierce was an interesting character to me because, like you said, he's arguably the most intelligent of the four princes. He gives Riley a run for his money because both of them are more intelligent than average in their own spheres of what they specialize in. But with Pierce, how did you balance his intelligence without making him too cold? Because a lot of times, super intelligent characters can come off as really cold and kind of uncaring or unfeeling, which we know that's how she feels about him, like when they first meet, but then soon learns there's layers to who he is.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that definitely is kind of a default setting in the beginning. He loves to be a little quieter, a little slower to react. But his warmth was really easy to come out because I think with intelligence, the emotional intelligence comes with it. And so he is very emotionally mature. And I think that's why when they do have their, you know, when they do finally connect, it's like incredibly deep and intrinsic because he knows he's very emotionally intelligent. So he knows his heart, and once he's decided something, that's it. So that warmth really came through because he knows his own emotions so well that it was just he knew how to express it once he trusted her enough to do it. So that came out really easily after the fact. But that first initial meeting, he definitely went to his default setting of like stand back.
So I have a few fun questions. On the topic of why choosing, it takes a really strong woman or female character, because sometimes we are not human in the realm of romantasy, to maintain an individual relationship. Not only if it's a traditional MF romance, let alone one that has more than one man or male character when they're not royal. But in this book, it's for royal males with everything that comes with a title. Do you think you could handle it if we put you in Riley's place?
No, not at all. No, she is just made for this. I am not strong enough to, I mean, she literally gets hit over and over and over with emotional blow after emotional blow, and then is also physically tested, mentally tested. She has to change her entire outlook just to try to survive. Like, she is a girl from the Ashlands. She is against authority and the patriarchy and everything wealthy. She has been, you know, robbing from them in order to help the people in her city. So I don't think I would last a day, honestly. Just I would just be in a corner crying. I wish I could say that. I wish I could say that I was strong enough. You know, I can fight my own battles, but man, she goes through the ringer. So no, I don't think I can handle it.
For Riley, one of my favorite parts with who Riley wasn't really, a scene or a line she said, but it was just how she grew throughout the book. And you must have had an incredible line that you balanced on precariously with how strong-willed she was and how, she's the worst possible choice they could have made when we first start this book. But you balance that in a way as they grow closer to almost make it feel very organic as feelings began getting involved. How did you, as the writer, balance that hatred she had for who the royals were, but also that growing sense that she began to feel like a part of them at the end?
Definitely. That was extremely hard to do. With yes, like her background is these wealthy people, they have no souls, they have no hearts, they don't care about us, they're not thinking about us. And I think giving her that life or death stake right in the beginning of being like, okay, I have to play this role or I could die. And I've got people that are counting on me, not only the people in her city, but her two best friends that she loves dearly, like sisters, and her sister, who she is desperate to find. And so I think putting that high stake on there did help me and Riley figure out, hey, we got to play this role. And then as she's playing the role, she starts to really learn and uncover, like, just like I'm not, I can't control my circumstance as much as I wish I could. sometimes wealthy people can't either. And so they're not all evil, heartless, soulless creatures. And that gives her this really big, emotional growth, because she's like, I thought they were all the same. And then when she starts to really get to know the princess, she realizes, okay, they aren't just flippant about how everything is, like they actually have cares, and they are powerless against people who don't. And so there's a system. And so it really was tough, but I think adding that life or death stake really helped.
So this next question is going to toe the line. It's not really spoilery because we learn pretty soon the scenario I'm giving you, but the moms are not there in the picture for the Four Princes when we begin this book. Was the idea that the moms go into this never-ending slumber and kind of leave their sons with this foretold prophecy that all of them have to find a singular mate to unlock their powers? Was that always how you saw the kind of contention between the kings and the princes play out when you sat down to write this book?
Yeah, definitely. That was something that really early on in development kind of came out in my mind, especially when Riley was talking to me about. I know that sounds crazy, but when Riley was being developed in my mind, she was definitely talking about the fact that, like, once at one point goddesses ruled this land. It wasn't kings, it wasn't men, it wasn't princes. It was female goddesses. And so that was always very prevalent, and I knew they weren't present. They had gone to sleep. They had done this great sacrifice. And so that definitely was very early on, and it definitely created this contention between the kings and their sons, and it offered this really great avenue that will be explored more in the second book for sure. So yeah, I loved that part.
For book 2, the way we meet the goddesses in book 1, you've said that we're going to continue to explore and learn about the true events that happened. But are we going to go back into the realm where we see the goddesses and learn more about them as, beings and who they emphasize, like whose life they truly play a role in?
So I'm still in the process of writing the book. So it is subject to change, as always, since I am very deep in the middle of writing it. But yes, my intention right now, and as I have it right now, we will learn a ton more about the goddesses, and they will play a greater role in, especially Riley's.
So the ending of book 1, as we've mentioned, differed from how you originally had it, but still leaves us crying at what happened. And the surprise character you throw at us at the end, who we're not going to name yet, but does that ending, is it affecting how we're going to start book 2? Or if you can are there any really big shocks coming when we kick off the beginning of this second book?
Big shocks. I don't think there's a big shock when we kick it off. It's definitely carries the note of intensity from the ending of the Neverlist into the second book. So it carries that deep pain and confusion and panic. Like it carries that note into it, and then there will be a big shock later in the book, but it's not right in the beginning, no.
This is a good one, and it kind of ties in both. So, on the topics of how each prince kind of gets their magic and how it ties to their kingdom, I'll kind of give it away. But Riley does have magic herself. We learn really early on, so I feel okay saying this in the interview. Are we going to learn more about the true origin of her powers and who they really came from?
Yes, we will. We will explore that further. We're going to have more room to explore a lot of the magic system further that I didn't get enough page time in book 1 to do, because it wasn't really central to the plot, but it will play a more important role in book 2. And so it's really fun to be able to continue to peel back those layers and show there was a reason for this. There is a method to the madness type of situation. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with that.
And I know readers want to know this. Book 1 is spicy. Are we going to continue that level of spice in book 2?
Yes. Absolutely. I don't think I'm capable of writing a wine shoes without spice. There's definitely going to be a lot of tension in this second book, but the spice is still going to be spicy.
And we will leave the book 2 questions there. And so, this game I mentioned earlier, I will give you a scenario or a question, and you have the option to choose either Cal, Axel, Pierce, or Jax, or Riley, or if you so choose, Miriam, or one of the kings. Do you feel that answer fits the question? But my first question is, if you were stranded on an island, which person in this book would you want to be stranded with you?
Axel. 100% Axel, because I mean, he is the island king. He's the island god. I would love it. Like, because he would just be able to take care of us and it would feel more like a vacation and not like we were stranded. So, and he would make me laugh the whole time. So, definitely Axel.
If you had to choose one character to remove or unalive in book one that stayed alive throughout this whole book one, which one would you pick?
Oh my gosh, that's hard. That's hard, especially while I'm writing book two. I'm gonna go safe route and say one of the oculi that corners Riley and has it out for her. I'm gonna say that character.
Those are creepy characters. And actually, I have a spoilery question about one of those characters in a bit. This next one's fun. If you could pick a sidekick from one of the main characters in this book that you would set out on, magical quests and like journeys that they're going to go on, which one would you choose?
It would be Pierce. It would be Pierce. Yeah, I think there's no situation that he wouldn't be able to handle, so I would go with him.
For this is a king's question. If you had to choose one of the kings to have a redemption arc, which one would you pick?
That is hard to say. I can't say. I can't say. I can't because I think it'll give too much away about book two, and I don't want to get in trouble. So I'm gonna pass because it's hard because they're all different and they're all their own level of complacent in the way things have become in Lumenthus. So it'd be really hard to say.
If I reversed it and say if you had to pick one to get rid of, are you allowed to answer that one?
I don't think so. I don't think I can. I don't think I can. I'm sorry. I don't want to give too much away. I want there to be like surprises in the second book.
It's all good. Some of these are reader questions I'm trying to reword so I can ask them.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a good challenge. It's just I think it gives a little more hint that the Kings play a different role in this second book.
This is always one of my fun ones. If you could pick a side character from book one, they don't have to have any major role in the plot. They can be any side character, big or small, that you would love to hang out with for a day. Which one would you pick? And what would you do?
That is such a good question. I think I would pick Mirren, and we would 100% go to the Obsidian City and just get crazy. I think it'd be fun to see her let her hair down because we haven't seen that yet. And she's so rigid, but she has that undertone of humor to her that I think could just be a hilarious girls' night. So I definitely would go with Mirren.
Between Jax, Pierce, and Axel, and I'm coincidentally leaving Cal out. If you had to pick one that would surprisingly be really good at giving you a pampered day to yourself with them, which one would you pick out of those three?
For a really good pampered day, that would have to be Cal. Or did you leave him out?
Come out.
Sorry, okay, that makes sense. Okay, pampered day. I'll say Pierce because he is very perceptive. And so he'd probably be able to read the mood and be like, oh no, you need a spa day, you need some chocolate, you need some tea, you need to zen out. I got you. I'm going to handle everything. He also understands like decision fatigue. That's something I love about Pierce. He understands the mental load probably better than anybody because of he sees it in everybody. So I think that he'd be really good at just being like, this is what you're gonna do, and you're gonna follow it, and you don't have to make any choices, and it'd be just like delightful. So yeah, I'd go with Pierce.
If you had to pick between Jax, Riley, and Cal, one person who would fit in the human realm the best, which one would you pick?
Probably Riley because she has, she's been raised to kind of tamp down the magic in her. So she has been raised to act very human. So I probably think she'd be easy to just like go into the role. Whereas the princes are, they were born part gods. So they would probably have a really hard time being human or pretending to be human, especially Jax because he's used to getting his way and he doesn't care what anybody thinks. So yeah, he'd probably be the hardest.
This one might be really hard too, or not. If you could have or choose one character you would not want to meet in a dark alley, and it might actually be easy, between Jax, Axel, and Riley's sister, which one would you pick?
Oh, that's incredibly hard. I would say Jax because for Riley's sister, I think she would be the thing you would never see coming. She's very good at hiding. It's one of her talents. So I would say Jax just because he is already so prickly anyway that if you met him in a dark alley, like that's definitely where you don't want to be, for sure.
Oh, this one's my favorite, and it might give a little bit of away for what I really liked about the book. But if you could pick between Axel and Cal as one duo, and Pierce and Jax as the other duo, and have you be Riley in this situation, which duo would you want to go with?
That's unfair. That's just like the worst because they're so much fun. They're different. They're such different vibes, you know, like Axel and Kyle together are just such a fun flavor combination. Like we've got the cocky, adventurous against the sweet and comforting, and then we've got Jax and Pierce, which is just that's a lot. It's a lot. Jax and Pierce together probably were my favorite to write together once we got there, but man, they're a lot. I think I would feel safest. Like if I was going the safe route, I would go Axel and Cal because I'd be like, they're gonna take care of me. Jax and Pierce, I'd be like, they might rearrange my brain chemistry. Like, I don't know. I think if I was feeling really bold, I would go Jax and Pierce, but I think it would depend on which, vibe you're going with.
On the topic of having to be really bold, between all the princes excluding Jack, so Cal, Axel, and Pierce, which one would you say is the most over the top, jealous, possessive type hero? And I
For
left
sure.
Jax out for a reason.
Yes, for sure. It would be Axel. Axel is definitely a act first, think later kind of guy. Like he's very intelligent, but he definitely is a slave to his instincts. And so I feel like there isn't a lot of toxic masculinity in these princes, and that was very intentional. But if there was going to be like this yummy primal jealousy come out, it would definitely be Axel. Yeah, for sure.
Especially if I take Jax out of the equation.
Yeah, because Jax would have been the one, but Axel is a close second in that regard, just because he is very territorial and he just doesn't hide any bit of who he is. So he's not gonna filter himself. Like if he doesn't like something, some way somebody's talking to Riley, he's gonna let him know. And so he just does it in a non-toxic way.
I love this one. So in this book, the princes each have a memento or an item that they give their chosen mate. If you could pick one, which princes would you want?
Well, I love that one. The tokens took me a while to really figure out the meaning behind them. But if I had to choose, it would definitely be Jax's. For sure. I have a moon tattoo, so I would absolutely go for Jax's. I think it just fit him so well. It fit him and her so well. So yeah, I would definitely go for that one.
That was a great one. It was also the one I could kind of assume how each one was going to get given. His was the one that I was like, oof, did not see that one coming.
I love that.
I could not figure out once we learned the first three what Jax's could be. Because I was like, she already has a ring, she already has a bracelet. I was like, what is left?
Yeah.
Because I was like, I know Jax is gonna be like, mine's gonna take the cake.
Right, yeah. He's extra like that. I mean, he acts like he isn't, but he really is extra.
So this is a different one, and you probably won't expect it coming. Between the four goddesses, if you could choose one of the goddesses to be your godly descendant, which one would you choose?
So that is a great question. They're all so wonderful in their own talents and powers. From what I know about them, I would probably say Eveluna. She is definitely the most jaded of the goddesses, but she's also the most passionate and driven. And so I would want some of that motivation and that hope to rub off on me.
If you had to choose one character that was to give up their life for Riley, and it's between Jax, Axel, and Miriam, which one would you choose? And I'm purposely putting her sister and Cal and Pierce out to make
Yeah. It's definitely hard because I love them all and I'm so trenched in their story right now that it's almost impossible to choose. But I could easily see Mirren falling on that sword for her. Like she, despite her, harsh lectures to Riley, she's doing it from a place of love for sure. And so I could easily, and just the way that she loves the princes as well, and she knows how much they care about Riley, I could absolutely see her doing that.
So before we hit teasers, I have a few general questions for you. So when you sit down to plot a new series or a book, how do you get your ideas and inspiration?
That's a fun question. Honestly, like my husband jokes about this all the time. I don't really know where it all comes from. I honestly don't. I feel very lucky that ideas just kind of fall into my lap, and I don't know how it happens. I think it's maybe because I'm such a wide reader and like movie goer and comic book lover, board game lover. I feel like I'm surrounding myself with great storytelling all the time, and maybe that's where, idea inspiration comes from. But yeah, I'm just really lucky that when I sit down, usually a character is already talking to me. So like even now as I'm writing the Never List, the sequel to it, there's another character talking to me from a completely different world. And I've always, for the past 10 years as a writer, I've always been scared of like what happens when that stops, like what happens when they stop talking to me. And I've gone like a couple days or so where it's like nothing's going on, but then something will happen and a character will start talking to me. So I don't know how to explain it. I just feel very, very lucky. Like I said, Riley kicked in the door and was like, "Hey, I have an idea for you. Tell my story." And so that's yeah.
So would you say you're a plotter or more of a pantser then?
I'm definitely a plotter, so I have to have a plot in order to keep myself accountable so I know what I'm going to write when I sit down. So yeah, once the characters, like I said, the characters are who comes and talks to me first and kind of tells me what's going on and what's their situation. So once I have those sketched out and kind of the general idea of what's at stake for them as a character, then I'll sit down and I'll plot like chapter by chapter. I'll have like a little snippet of like what I want to happen in the scene, like whose POV it's in, the environment, like everything I can, I put into that chapter by chapter analysis. That way, when I sit down, I know what's happening. That isn't to say that I don't deviate. I mean, we always end up deviating from the plot. The characters always are end up like, oh, actually, we're going to go over here today. And like, we'll end up doing that. So maybe while I'm at the computer, sometimes we'll go off cuff. Mainly, I stick to the plot.
Did you, growing up, have any authors or books that really kind of struck a chord and said, this is something I want to do when I get older?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. So I actually figured out I wanted to be an author when I was 8 years old. My second grade teacher came in and she had this like little stack of blank hardback books. And she was like, we're going to work all week on a story. It can be about whatever you want your story to be about. It just has to have like a beginning, a middle, and end, very basic. And I had never been so excited about school in my life. I was so pumped. And at the end of it, we got to we did rough drafts. We had them in notebooks and stuff, and then we perfected it. And I loved that process of like, here's my first idea, and now we're going to edit it. And then now it's going into this final hardback book. And then we got to read it to our parents, like an audience. It was like almost like a funny book signing, like for second graders. And ever since then, that's all I've ever like. Anytime anybody was like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be an author," and like there was no other choice for me. And I'd always been a reader. Like I remember reading super early, like Peter Rabbit. Like it was one of my favorites, and just consuming stories. And so yeah, I've always wanted to be an author, and so I'm super lucky.
So, do you have any favorite authors or books that came out recently that you're excited to be able to read? Or do you read in your free time?
Yeah, no, I do. I try to read as much as I can. So like I am at the computer a lot with these deadlines, but like if I'm on my lunch break, I'm reading. I'm reading before bed. I just finished Quicksilver and I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with Callie Hart. I can't wait for Brimstone to come out. Some other of my favorite authors, like I love Kimberly Durden. She wrote some young adult paranormal series several years ago. I love her. So anything she puts out, I love. I mean, yeah, I try to consume as much as I can. I love Abigail Owen and the James Scott's play. Like I just finished that one before Quicksilver, and I'm obsessed with that too. So yeah, I do my best to keep up. There's just so many good books out.
September is going to be a wild month for me because so many of my like anticipated reads were in the month of September, and I'm just like, what am I going to do? Take a month off
I
work?
know. I know. There's so many. It's like just growing. It's always growing.
That is true too. Last question before we hit some teasers. I know we're kind of butting up with the hour, but for the release of the Never List, what are you most excited for as an author leading up to release or for excitement about surrounding the release?
Oh man, it's already been such an amazing experience with the readers who are reading early. I love, like, that's one of my favorite things is connecting with readers, and I do my best to answer like every DM, every comment. Like, if I can, I'm going to be answering it. And some of the most fun lately has been with these readers who have never read a Why Choose before, and they're like, I never thought I would like it, and then they end up just loving it. And so that's been something that I feel very honored to hear, that my Why Choose has made them want to go read other Why Choose powerhouses like, Katie Robert and Nikki St. Crow. So I'm so pumped about that. And it's just been such a fun experience connecting with those readers.
So we have reached that point in the interview. I tried to be as nice as I could and get all the questions that people wanted answered out of the way. This is the point where if you don't want to be spoiled if you haven't finished, that you need to hit pause and come back to. Because there's some questions that I want answered that I'm pretty sure might get a yes or a no. But I'm going to ask anyway because I know they're going to come up. The first one is going to be right off the deep end for spoilers. The ending, the sister. I had a hunch that the sister was going to be behind all of this mayhem. And I hated being right. I hated it. But did you know from page 1 that it was always going to be this long lost sister that Riley is on the hunt for, causing all the discord in Riley's life?
Yes, I did know. Erin actually talks to me almost as much as Riley does. It's just I don't have her POV yet. So yeah, she definitely told me her story right off the bat, and it played a incredible role in the construction of the Neverlist. So I did know.
And this one is kind of also off the deep end. So Riley and her sister both have magic, and they're both part of the cast in this society that has been kind of banned and outlawed. So they're hiding in secret. But with Riley's, she has wind magic, and she is tied closer to one of the princes with their magics than could be considered normal, if not a little taboo, since we know magic comes from the goddess. And the question is, there's no relation at all with who the mom is when we find out her origins. She's going to be completely separated.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no, yeah. So in the, when Lumithus was first founded and the goddesses walked among them, they randomly would choose who to bless with their powers. From, simple acts of kindness to this person really impressed me. And so then those bloodlines would be blessed with those powers. So there is no relation whatsoever. It was a gift given to a certain ancestor that happens to be in Riley and Erin's line. It's definitely not, there's no relation whatsoever. It was just a gift that, now randomly appears down the bloodline through the ancestral line.
Had to ask that one to lead into this one. Starting to get into the meat of the the spoilery teaser questions. This is my favorite. Jax at the end. I have a lot of Jax questions coming up. For your information, is the most jealous, possessive, over the top of the 4. Riley is his, and he has no restraint once that final string is snapped. Did you see the way his string was going to be snapped with her leaving his club and what happens after and those events being what finally pushed him over the edge?
I did not. That one came completely organic, not plotted, out of nowhere. In my mind, I had plotted it a completely different way that would have been kind of more on brand for the others that had happened and their kind of connection. And then this one, it just organically came from this very intense, heightened situation because I think that's just Jax. I think he's my extra. He's this extra bougie, broody, dramatic prince, and I think that's just that was the only way that was gonna snap for him. And it took a lot. It took a lot. Riley had to really work to get him to open up to her.
So the next one, we're going all the way back to the beginning. But Jax is the one whose year it is to choose, and he is very adamant he's not going to choose. The others can do it for him when we hit the scene for him to be, the chooser. What made you decide to have him go through with picking Riley? Because he very much saw her, sought her out, chased her, and then said, I'm going to pick this girl who is probably the least, worthy choice of the kings, in their opinion.
Yeah, I think with Jax, it was very much a compulsion, almost like he was so compelled and he was so thrown off by Riley just from like the first instant where he hears her kind of running her mouth about the royals and how she despises them, to the way she interacted with him. He's so not used to that. Usually people give him such a wide berth and it hurts. Like, it's that kind of distance and non-human connection beyond his friends. It builds up in a person. And I think that he was almost intoxicated by her ability to just like banter with him. Like, I think he was just really thrown off by that. And he was like, I need more. It was like he needed another hit almost. He was like, I gotta have more of this. And so I felt like when he runs up there last minute, he just literally cannot fight his better sense, which his better sense is he's lost all hope in this game. He thinks it's not ever going to happen for them, especially for him. He's even said that like his friends have, been more open to this idea than he ever has. And so I think it was more like he could not call her number. He just couldn't.
The way you answer that brings me to my next question perfectly. The topic of their power and the, persona their magic embodies. Because you could argue that their magic kind of takes on roles of its own with how people are affected by them. When you developed Riley not having the effect and kind of just blowing past this, for that they thought she should have when she felt the magnitude of their powers, was it shocking that Pierce and Jax were the ones that were more astounded by it than the other two?
No, I think it really fits them. I think that I was pretty expectant of them to react the way they did, especially with Pierce. Like, again, both of them, Pierce and Jax, both kind of not make Riley jump through hurdles to earn their trust, but like they definitely put her to the test more than Axel and Cal. Like, Cal and Axel are very much, here's my heart, don't break it, please. But if you do, I'll just deal with it. But for Pierce and Jax, they made her earn it, and rightly so from all that they've been through. And so I think their reactions were pretty, like, I felt like it was pretty natural for them.
This is my last Jax question, and you know it's coming because we've talked about it. Jax and Riley have an insane bond in this book. You could argue that if you took the other three princes away, that they're still the couple that has the most fated mate bond I've ever read, I want to argue. Because there's something about them from every character's point of view. And there's no jealousy with the other princes either. I want to point that out. When they're in the same room, they're just magnets. Did you always know it was going to be Jax? And if you can answer it, is there any truth that their bond is kind of more transcendent than the other three with Riley?
I can't answer that. And because this is still very much, I'm still in it in the story. And I did know that Jax and her were going to be electric from the start. Like, the minute they were on the page together, I was like, oh, this is really they're very similar in so many ways. They both have so much discontent with their current roles in Lumithus. And so I knew that they were going to be like firecrackers together. And then I can't take away the other three from them because each connection is so strong that it would be hard for me to say one is stronger than the other, because they all have different pieces of Riley, and then they all work together so well. So it would be hard for me to say one stronger than the other for sure. But yeah, they definitely I think they're just so similar. I think that's why it's so electric between them.
For Pierce, the spicy scene where he's able to multiply. How much fun was that chapter to write? And this isn't a section because I want to give it away.
It was the most fun. That was one of my favorite scenes to write because it was just such an uncharted territory for me in all my wide chooses. It was just so fun to explore that depth of power and to really also layer in that trust game. It's like such a fun trust game for them. So yeah, I really loved it. It was even more fun when my editor read it and then like had comments and was like texting me about it. I think that made it even more fun for me, like just having somebody else enjoy that and be like, oh my gosh, you did this. So that was fun.
There's a scene where, and I said I had no more Jax questions. It's not truly a Jax question, but when Riley enters the Obsidian Court and Jax is not there, there's a scene between her and Miriam, which kind of embodies the final trial Riley has to go to. In Miriam's point of view, let me start off with that, to be accepted as, the mate for 4 princes. Did you always know you were going to have to make be Riley go after Jax, because we meet Riley and say she's never going to be someone who chases after one of these princes. And it goes against everything she's kind of voiced and been very opinionated about throughout the whole book.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew that was going to have to happen because both of them, Jax and Riley, are so they need that proof. They need that grand gesture. They need to know because both of them have been raised to feel like they're not worthy of much. And no matter how hard you fight against it, you can only be told you're not enough or not worth much so many times that it kind of starts to sink in and it starts to sting and it makes you question. It leaks into everything in your life, which is very prevalent for Riley. And so, yeah, she definitely is like, I'm never going to get on my knees for these princes and I'm never going to, I'm just playing a role. I'm just this badass, right? But like, by the time she gets to Jax's city, the Obsidian City, she is fully in love with the other three princes. And she knows that if she does not earn Jax's trust in his heart, she's going to lose then too. And so I think she was like, he's worth any kind of rejection he may give her. And so in that term, running after him was scary, but it was, it had to be. My dog is groaning in the background, sorry. She had to take those steps in order to earn that for sure.
This one, I don't know if we'll get an answer. The scene when she is first chosen, where she enters the first trial and she runs into the kings who intercept her. How did you balance that really kind of dark undertone with the events and Jax's father putting her in a very bad position, with it not clouding how she already felt about being chosen as a potential mate?
That was a really hard scene to write. It definitely was super emotional, but I thought, it was very relatable and it definitely showcased where Baedel's character was coming from and kind of setting the stage for who he is and how he thinks everything and everyone is beneath him and belongs to him, and kind of reaffirmed all her fears about royalty, about authority, about wealthy men, and how they've treated her. Like, men in authority have not treated her very well. And so I felt it was very, it was not serendipitous, but it was almost like Riley was like, of course this is going to happen. But then she gets to be surprised by the sons being completely different and immediately explained to her how important her consent is to them, which was a huge back and forth. Like, it was a very whiplash moment for Riley. And I was trying to set that context for her to set up these really dynamic relationships that are going to happen with the princes. And I think had the princes not immediately kicked open the door and were like, consent's actually really important to us. So know that. I don't think she would have been able to be herself as much as quickly as she was without that conversation. So I think it was like night and day, like they had to go hand in hand in order to fully set that scene.
So kind of transitioning out of the spoilers as we wind down this interview, a big area in the book was Riley's secret. And I said no spoilers. I don't consider this a spoiler because her origin is not hidden from the get-go. It's just hidden from the guys.
Right, yeah.
But who she is as a person and what she embodies, being kind of an outcasted cast, being chosen as a rebel, how will that play into her going into book 2? Because we know that secret is not going to stay hidden as much as she wants it to stay hidden.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to play a huge role in book 2 because of now her status and who she is to the princes. She is now she's their mate, and she is going to be a part of Lumethyst in a way that she's never been before. And that definitely creates a lot of conflict in book 2 for sure, because it's just so different.
On the topic of their mate, one of the characters has a big outburst in this book. Probably one that no one will see coming. I won't name it here to try to protect this one in case someone watches it without finishing. Did you always know the character that has that big explosive blowout scene at the end was going to be who it was, and that he was going to be reduced to begging on his knees for the end event not to occur?
Yes, I did know that. I did know that about that character. That scene actually came to me very early on in the story, especially knowing that character as well as I did. I was like, this is going to hurt. And he was going to hurt me. And so, yeah.
That's mean.
Yeah, no, it came to me that way. It came to me that way, and it did. It hurt me. And usually, when the characters present me with those situations, when they flash in my mind like that, and then my chest hurts, I'm like, okay, I gotta write this down. I've gotta actually listen to this. This is actually going to be important and crucial to the story, and we need to keep it in. And so, yeah, I did know that early on.
So I asked a lot of questions I was dying to answer to. This might be the one that I'm most curious about. So this book is divided into kind of almost 4 parts, and it's centered around each court as she travels and spends her time in each of the 4 courts. Was the order of the courts always known to you and done purposely?
Yes. I definitely, because again, like I said, I start with my characters first, and so I had gotten to know Cal, Axel, Pierce, and Jax pretty well. And so their tone and their attitude kind of set the tone for the cities as well. And so I knew that she had to go to Cal first. Like, in order for her to succeed, there was no world where she wasn't going to go see Cal first, because he's the one that was going to kind of like break down her stereotypes and her bias and kind of like give her this comforting transition into a world that is not comforting to her at all. And so that was something that I knew needed to happen. And then as I got further into the story, Pierce, he just kind of kept pulling away as well, him and Jax. So I was like, then it's got to be Axel. And then Jax was always going to be last because he was the one that is most guarded, the one that he doesn't think much of himself, unfortunately, and so he didn't want to like corrupt their chances with her, and so that's why he was always going to be last. So yeah.
So I only have a couple more questions. This next one's going to take us out of the teasers, but this book is a book in a series. Can you kind of give us a hint of how many expected books are planned? And I know this may change, so
Yes.
it's
It
not.
does always change, or it can always change. It doesn't always change. But right now we have 3 planned. Right now in my mind, I see it as 3, but of course, I'm only halfway through the second book right now, so it can always, it can always alter. But yeah, right now 3.
Will the color scheme stay the same? So this book was a very royal purple. Purple's a very royal color. And I don't believe purple is a color of any of the 4 princes either. No.
No.
So will it stay purple, or will we start seeing other colors?
That is a fantastic question. I actually don't have a ton of say in the covers, and I don't need to because I have such a great cover artist and team at Red Tower. So I honestly have no idea what they have in store for us. Usually, once they read it, then they get this beautiful vision, and I honestly couldn't have designed or picked a better cover. I'm so in love. I'm so grateful. So I don't know. And I have fun being surprised as well.
So the Neverlist releases April 8th now. And since Red Tower has been known for those fancy deluxe editions, that also deluxe edition sprayed edge, I believe it may have some in paper designs on the inside.
Yeah, I have it. I could show you.
So it does. So it's the nice.
Yeah, I got an early copy
I'm so
just
excited to get
recently.
mine. I can't wait to see it. I've seen
I'm in love.
but the question is, for us rabid readers, where can we meet you in person this year?
Well, that's such a great question. So for right now, I'll have more events posted on my website, jadepresley.com, under the events tab. But for right now, I'll be in San Antonio on April 12th. So the San Antonio Book Festival. And then I will be having a local signing at my local Barnes and Noble in Colorado Springs on April 18th. And then I will be going to a couple other places, but I don't know if they've been announced yet. And so the minute I can announce them, I'll post them on my Instagram, TikTok, and on my website. So definitely keep checking there, or you can DM me. And if I'm, allowed to say where I'll be, I will let you know.
My penultimate question is, if you had to pick one line or quote from the book that stood out to you while writing, do you have one, first of all? And what is it if you do have one?
I do have one, and it's fun because I've been asked this before, and it's one that he thinks, it's not exactly a quote, but he thinks it, and it's like kind of sums up him and Riley's dynamic immediately, and it's very early on, and he says, she's a jagged diamond of indifference in a sea of attention-seeking wealth, and I loved that line, it came so naturally from him, and it literally just, it sets the stage for who he is and how he views Riley and why he's so intrigued by her. And their dynamic kind of kicks off the entire story in that opening, and so that line is really important to me, and I'm so in love with it. So yeah, that's my favorite.
That was also one of the lines that I had. It's, you know, when you hear it, that it is going to stick.
Thanks. I
She's
loved
very
it.
different at the beginning when we meet her.
Yeah, definitely. And he clocks her right away. So I
Oh,
love that. Like he literally just he gets her right away. He sees her. And I think that's an important part of their dynamic.
he sees her, and I think my favorite part is because when they first meet, I believe it's from Riley's point of view, and she is struck by his violet colored eyes, which I said that, and that could be a big reason why this book is a pretty violet purple.
It could be.
The way we see the mask and his eyes, just, I think I envisioned it throughout the whole, 500 pages in this book. And I was just like, that would be like the best character art, like just
Oh,
the mask with his eyes, slitted out from the eye holes.
yeah.
And on
I
the,
would love to see that. I hope I get lucky enough to see, because there's so many wonderful artists out there. But yeah, it was very vivid in my mind. That whole masquerade ball was very, very vivid, and I loved writing it. It was so much fun, like researching masks and like how they would fit on the faces and all of that. So it was a good time.
and that leads up perfectly to my last question. On masks, are we going to get a sneak peek before book 2 of Riley's mask and the fifth prince or first princess of chaos mask that they are going to make for her? Because we do end the book knowing that it is coming, and I need to know what they're going to make it look like.
As of right now, I don't know if we'll have a sneak peek of that yet. But because again, I'm still in the very early stages and the first process of writing book 2. So that will have to wait.
Well, I had a blast chatting with you, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day to meet with me and discuss the Never List and, your thoughts and inspirations behind the book and how you came up with such a fantastic Why Choose Romantasy. You guys will see this book all over my page in the coming month, probably, because I cannot shut up about it. But I just want to thank you for donating your time and giving me the chance to talk to you, because I know you have to be filled to the brim with people wanting to chat with you.
Oh no, I'm so grateful for you having me on here, and I love talking with you. I love talking with readers. So yeah, I welcome it. If I can fit it in, I'm going to do it, because I just know that without readers like you and influencers like you, the book would not be what it is. So I really appreciate all of your time and for having me.
Well, that does sum up my questions. I do want to give you a few minutes, though, if you had any questions you wanted to throw back at me, that now's your time, or if not, we can go ahead and end here.
Let's see, what would be, you had so many good ones. I guess I would ask you, where would you pick, if you could pick one of the cities, where would you end up?
So my question is definitely, I have a prince that I would choose, but it's not the court he is of type situation. Most of the time, I think I would go more towards the Emerald Forest because I'm more of a reader and I like my downtime with like tea and being more immersed in intellect. If I was feeling like I wanted a vacation, it'd be the beach because I'm also a beach lover. That gives it away. My prince obviously is Jax.
Yeah.
Ask me that one. It was also the one when I was asking you if I could see him being able to transpose into other courts because he kind of has that sly cunning,
Oh, he does, yeah.
able to hide who he is.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I would probably choose the same as you and do the Emerald Forest.
Yeah, I think that just calls to like our reader hearts. Like it's just a good place for readers and, introverts. Like it's good for people that would just want to be, in their own space. So I get that.
And if it came with a prince who had mind powers and could duplicate himself, I wouldn't complain.
Yeah, you wouldn't make me say no to that.
I wouldn't say no to that.
Absolutely.
That was a great place to end on, so we'll go ahead and end here. Um, Again, thank you for joining me, and I best of luck for your release. I'm so excited to see all the reactions and readers. And I know I said I was going to end. I do have one last question, but what is your favorite thing looking forward to releases and reader reactions as an author?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Like I said, I honestly love seeing the readers' reactions and, their input and what the characters mean to them or what this world means to them, the genre, all of those things. So really, being tagged in those things and being able to interact with readers who maybe not had interacted with me ever before. I love doing that. I love meeting you guys in person too. So really that's the thing I look forward to most for sure.
If we have time, this one I meant to ask earlier on, and I completely skipped over it, so this is my bad. But, of course, now it goes out of my head. The ending. Have you had any unhinged reader reactions for the twist you throw at us at the end with who becomes the obvious villain choice when it's unmasked?
Yeah, I've had some really fun DMs for that for sure. I've had a lot of people yelling at me. I had a reader like use the full name, like Jade Elizabeth Presley. What are you doing? Like just pulling out all this stuff. So yeah, those have been really fun actually. I really love that. I love the surprise and I didn't see that coming. And then or some people are like, I thought of it, but then I was like, no, and then yes, and kind of like a back and forth. So yeah, that's been really fun.
I'm really going to end it here now.
Okay.
But thank you again, and I will go ahead and stop the recording.